Welcome to A New Breed of Golf live inside the Morgan Franklin Transformation Center. Excited to be with you once again on yet another Thursday, the Thursday after a Ryder Cup where, unfortunately, we're talking about things that are not necessarily, well, they're Ryder Cup related, but it's not about what happened on the golf course. It's more about what happened off the golf course. And unfortunately, we keep talking about it. Unfortunately, you all want to keep talking about it as well. So what we're going to talk about today, though, has nothing to do with the Ryder Cup. We're talking about Breed's basics, some of the things that you need to understand, basic understandings of certain elements of the golf swing or the game of golf. And so we're going to cover some basics today. We're going to cover the basics of impact, understanding face path relationship and how that's going to work. And most importantly, we're going to understand the basics of correct posture. I've got a cool way of showing you what posture should be about. And then I'm going to also additionally give you a basic fundamental understanding of how the body is going to work efficiently and effectively so that you can get some consistency in your strike. Now, before we get to all the stuff that we got to do, I want to introduce you to my boys, Mr. Steve Gibbs and Greg Ducharme. Now, Gibbsy's feeling a little bit better, and Gibbsy's flaunting to the camera, and there, yeah, that's now, see, that's what I'm used to. That's what I'm expecting. That's what I'm hoping for. And listen, when it looks ugly like that, it looks ugly like that. Now, speaking of things that are not ugly, our Blessed Poker Chip ball markers. We're selling these like hotcakes. No, actually, like Blessed Poker Chip ball markers. $6. Send those emails to me at anewbreedofgolf@michaelbreed.com. 5 different colors. We've got those in. Get yours today. I'm telling you, you're going to make some birdies. You're going to make some big putts, and you're going to feel really positive. There's a lot of positive mojo in these things, so make sure you get yourself one of those. And also, too, we've got our putter covers and hats. And again, all you need to do to get those putter covers and hats, send an email to me at anewbreedofgolf@michaelbreed.com. We have it in both the blade and the mallet style, and we have various colors of hats still available. The red, white, and blue, obviously around the Ryder Cup time, have been very, very popular. So excited to make those available to you and continue to make those available to you. Now, I want to talk to you about correct posture. And so many times, like this understanding of what is the correct, it gets debated and talked about all the time. And what are some of the basics to it? Well, obviously weight distribution is a basic, and not just toe, heel, but left, right. We've talked about that in the past. So I got a different way of showing you how this is supposed to work. So what I've done, and you know how much I love PVC, I've put together a little device here for a reason. So I'm going to put that there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some shoes because I love how this works. So if I put a shoe here and I put a shoe here, it's a little bit of a broader stance. Big guy. Move that in like that. Okay. There you go. Now, Gibbsy, give me a down the line if you would. Right? Okay, terrific. So what I want you to think about in your address position is this will be the shin. This is going to be the kind of the thigh. This will be your tailbone right here, and then your spine going like this. Okay, so there's a head sitting. There's a head that's sitting right here like this. Okay, so that's this individual getting ready to hit a shot. All right. Now, what I want you to appreciate is balance. So what I've done is I've got this set up. There's some angles in here, and yet this isn't falling over. When I get to where the tailbone, which right here, this would be the heel or the back end of the foot right in here, right? When that tailbone right here gets to where it's over that heel, that's going to fall forward, which is exactly what you're going to do. And it'll happen every single time. What I don't want to have happen is I don't want the shin to be straight up and down. When the shin is straight up and down, now I don't have enough weight on this side of this middle PVC pipe to keep this thing from falling backwards. And so what we need to do is we need to understand the relationship of this tailbone to the heel. And in all the studies that we have done, it's about 6 to 8 inches behind that heel is where the tailbone should be. That's really what we're trying to get, about 6 to 8 inches. Now, it doesn't really look like that's 6 to 8 inches because that looks like that's fairly long. But remember, this part of the shin has a slight forward lean to it. That shin is not straight up and down. There's a slight forward tilt to that there. And there's the tailbone. And now you're in that 6 to 8 inch difference from the heel to the back of the tailbone. And what I want you to realize is, yeah, I do want bends. I want to bend in the knee. I want to bend in the waist. I want that tailbone sitting as the farthest. The tailbone is going to be the farthest part out there. Now, yeah, it might be, well, you might feel like your can is out there too, your butt. No problem. But I want you to feel like the tailbone is the farthest thing out there. And then what I want you to realize in motion is that this tailbone is going to stay back there. The tailbone, if the tailbone moves in here, we call it early extension. When the tailbone moves in this way in the downswing, that's when you get out of balance. And that's when you start trying to create some balance in it. And then all of a sudden your spine will stand up. And the reason why is, watch what happens to this swim noodle. When this tailbone starts to work in this way, that swim noodle gets lower. So right here, you can see this is at this height here. When I start to, so I'll hold my hand here. When I move that in, that actually gets lower. And so what happens then is you have to take your spine and you have to stand it up in order to offset that tailbone going in that way. And that's when you start to really lose some balance. So this image, which you have, is this tailbone is the farthest part of the body away from the target line and away from the golf ball itself. Okay, right in here, which is roughly where we are. All right. So that's what you need to appreciate. Now, when we start talking about the motion, and let me just drop this thing down here. So we start talking about the motion. Now what I want to do is pull up this V1. And what I've done is I've got the camera. I don't know whether Gibbsy you can pull that full. That's the overhead look of what we have here. Now, what I have done is you can see I put a little white tape right here on my tailbone. And so what I'm going to do when I set up is I'm going to make sure that you can see my heel. My heel is right here in that R in sports. And this one is sort of in the middle of the V and the V1. You can also see that my tailbone is now back here on the edge of that mat right there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit a ball. I'm going to record this and then I'm going to explain to you how the tailbone is going to work in motion. This is a fundamental, right? Thinking about the tailbone in the swing. So we get set up. Tailbone is back there outside of my heels. Gibbsy, if you can, just give me a down the line shot here so you can see I've got a break in my knee. I've got a break in my hips, right? And I've got some bend in my spine. Arms are hanging down, which obviously didn't show in that with the PVC pipe there. But all of a sudden now my body is balanced and I'm not out here on my toes with my heels in the air. And I'm not in here with my heels and the toes in the air. I'm balanced in the feet and my tailbone is back. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a hit and then I'm going to explain it to you. So set up here, feel that tailbone back there. Okay. Now that's a pretty good shot right there. It's not perfect. It started a little bit to the right, about a half a degree to the right, but it's a shot I'm not embarrassed by. So now I want you to see how this tailbone works, because this is also a very important basic. The basic of understanding how the tailbone is going to work past the address position, how the tailbone is going to work through the swing, okay? So we're really talking about the basic of the address position and then the basic of the motion of the tailbone. The tailbone is going to be the key source of your balance, of your consistency of strike, of your predictable distance. Believe it or not, that's an essential. Now, I'm going to just draw an X right there. So that's where the tailbone is. Now the club goes back. And what you can see is that tailbone starts to work towards the target. So it's working this way, but it's also working that way. So it's going both that way and this way. Look at that white piece of tape there. Then in the start of the downswing, it moves forward. And now from here, it's going to start working in the opposite direction. It's going to start moving away from the target. As the body is starting to rotate, the tailbone is going to rotate. And it rotates back. See it moving back? Now what's fun is that as it's rotating, it's now also then starting to go this way again. So it's moving that way again. It's already done a little bit of movement forward and back, and now it's going to start rotating. It's going to start going up again through the rotation. And it's almost where it started. So if you have an image in your mind of the tailbone being in a certain place and returning it to that place with the hips in an open position, you're actually going to get a really good strike. That tailbone, I don't want to see that tailbone way up in here at the strike. I want that tailbone to be back almost where it was. It's going to be slightly closer to the target because the hips have rotated. And when the hips have rotated, that part, the tailbone, is now going to be working towards the strike line. And so the hips at strike are open, and the tailbone now is right there. Almost where it was, not quite, almost where it was through the rotation and the backward movement of the tailbone that way. So when we start to think about what we want to try to do to become a good ball striker, what I want you to do is this, and I'm going to get to the impact point. We talk about impact and how important that is and the basics of impact. I got some things to explain to you in that vein. But what you need to understand is, and Gibbsy, if you could, let me get you to pull this overhead shot again for me. I'm going to pull this way. So if you pull that up, great. You can see that tailbone right there. What I don't want, and what many of you will do, is take that tailbone and slide it back this way right at the start. So all of a sudden now I can see this foot because the hips have moved so much this way. Now, what I do is I have a little bit of a start where in my swing, I kind of move my hips slightly right, not a lot, but slightly right. So I just have a little bit of this, and then I get into the rotation of the tailbone, and it starts moving forward and up. Okay. And what I want you to think about when you're thinking about creating a good turn, I want you to think about the rotation of the tailbone. Because once that tailbone starts to move this way, your shoulders are going to move. The club is going to move. The arms are going to move. Everything is going to move. So what I want you to do is I want you to get set up. Let's go down the line here. Tailbone outside the heels. Okay, so tailbone's back in here. And once you get that, what I want you to feel is I want you to feel that tailbone now twisting this way, which is going to give you a good rotation of the hips, a good rotation of the shoulder, nice width in the backswing, and some depth of the hands as well. And then I want you to feel that tailbone staying back on the back side of the heels. And when you get that, what you're going to get is you're going to get a really nice, solid strike. This is a strike. I'm not even thinking about what I'm doing. I don't even know how far I'm swinging the club or thinking about distance or anything like that. And I still got that ball to get out to 175 yards. And the reason why is because I swung the club properly, effortlessly, and I got it in the center of the club face. And so as you start to think about what happens to you when you early extend, you start messing around with the path of the club. So if I come in here, the tailbone has moved back, and then I take the tailbone and I start to drive it or thrust it towards the ball, the club is going to drop down, and I'm going to be way under here. And when I get under there, now all of a sudden I got to flip the face because the path of the golf of the shot is going way out to the push side. And the only way I can recover that is to take the club face and flip the face, which is one of the reasons why I want to talk to you about impact, which we're going to get to in a second, and understanding the basics of impact. But you got to realize that what this tailbone is doing is an important part of success, both in address and in swing. Okay, so tailbone back, feel that push, and then it's just going to rotate. It's going to spin like a lazy Susan. It's going to spin there, and then it's going to spin back. It's going to stay just slightly outside of those heels. There's another really good draw, another very similar shot to what I just did there, 117 miles an hour ball speed, 175 in the air, 179 total. That is very, very similar to what, hold that shot up there, Greg. I don't know if you can go back to that or not, because I want to just take a look at this. So what I get there is I get all of a sudden now a path. Great job there, Gibbsy. So what I get is I get a path that's in to out 4.1 degrees. That's in to out 4.1 degrees right there. And what that means is that the rotation of my tailbone there allowed the club to come from the inside. So when you start thinking about, why can't I hit a draw? Who doesn't have that thought? How come I can't hit a draw? Well, the reason why you can't hit a draw is because you have no awareness of what's going on with your tailbone, both at address and then as well in motion. All right. And what I want you to feel, and this is a wonderful drill to do. Just put a little tape. Go ahead over to that overhead shot, if you would, Gibbsy. Put a little tape on the backside of your shirt. And then when you get set up here, I want you to think about, I want you to think about a little pivot of that tailbone going that way. And then I want you to feel that tailbone rotating that way, but also staying on the backside of the heels. Now, it won't, because the tailbone should get over at some point right over the heel because of so between the center of my body and the outside of my hip, right? So my hips are, I don't know how wide they are, but half that is going to be about this. And then I spin that way. Well, all of a sudden, that's going to be greater than 6 to 8 inches. And if it is, then my tailbone is actually going to slide up close to my heels, right? Makes a lot of sense. So, what I want you to do is I want you to feel like that tailbone is staying back there. That's how you're going to go down the line, if you would. If I keep that tailbone back there, which you can see right there is right over the heel, but it feels like it's back. It's not in here like this. It's back there like that. And all of a sudden now I maintain my posture. Okay. So let's do this one more time. So I feel that heel weight a lot more. If I get my tailbone out this way, now I'm pushing into the ground. You can see my heels up off the ground. Now I can't make the right motion. Now I'm going to have to early extend in the backswing. A lot of bad problems. Okay, so that tailbone is back. And now we're going to spin that tailbone and keep it back there. So that's going to pivot like this. So we keep it back there. And now look at that. That's another shot. Really like this one. Again, didn't go after it hard, but I got the ball to start on the line that I wanted to start on. And you can see that golf ball, not a lot of movement in it, only 111 RPMs of right side spin. Stay on that shot, Gibbsy. There's your side spin, 111 RPMs of right side spin. So what does that mean? Hey, Greg, if you would pull that shot and let's see the trace on that. Gibbsy, if you can pull that up, and what you can see, that's a straight shot. I mean, for some, that's a little fade. But for most people, you included, that's a straight shot. You hit that ball at your target and it kind of went right at the target, maybe moved a little bit, 111 RPMs of side spin, nothing. It's literally nothing. And that shot there, easy to follow around a golf course. And all you're doing is thinking about what's going on with that tailbone. Now, what I want to do now is I want to talk to you about the basics of impact, because these are related, right? So, in order to understand the basics of impact, I'm going to take this basketball and put this basketball here. And if you go down the line, Gibbsy, yep, there you go. Wonderful. And you might even still be able to get an overhead look too. I don't know whether if you go to the overhead shot, whether that's still there. Yeah, that's terrific. So what you can see is I've got a box right here. If I take that box and I twist this box in this fashion here, and my impact point or my touch point, which is right around this seam right here, if I impact there with that box like that, it's going to go off to the right-hand side. Okay? That is a straight path with an open club face or an open box. Straight path, open box. You get the deflection. And the deflection pushes that thing off to the push side. So in order for me to hit a shot that starts to the right or to the push side and then turns to the pull side with a draw, in order for me to do that, what I have to have is I have to have a path from in to out and a face that takes the impact point, believe it or not, and gets it closer. Go back over to that overhead shot. It gets it closer to this panel. It won't be in that panel, but it won't be at that spot either. It'll probably be right about there. So as I take this club face, and this will be fun to see, as I take this club face and I start to take the club face and close it more, now all of a sudden, my impact point starts to get closer and closer and closer to the middle line, this being square. So what I want to do now is I want to take a closed face, but have it coming from the inside. And now all of a sudden, I'm going to get an impact point that's going to come in from here and spin the face that way or spin the ball that way. And I hit a draw. Okay. Now, let's move these things out. And let's show you what I'm talking about here. So what I'm going to do here is this, and this is one of the things that's important to understand this. Face is the most important thing. You have to have face control. And when you start to move your body improperly, what will end up happening is you'll lose the control over the face, right? So when that tailbone starts going underneath and it drops the club too much underneath, now all of a sudden, believe it or not, it opens up the club face as well, or can open up the club face, okay? So what I'm going to do here is this. I'm going to swing this club from in to out, but I'm going to have a dramatically shut face. And what you're going to see is that with a path going in to out, the start line of this shot is still going to be to the pull side because the face is so closed, okay? So face is shut. Path's going to come from in there. I hit a shank. So I can't even tell you what happened on that one. But the path of the golf club, I got the path of the golf club to start. So this will tell you what happened. I got the path of the golf club 6 degrees from in to out. It started 3.4 to the right, so the club face was a little bit open, okay? I mean, the club face was closed relative to that, but the path was still, it worked. But that was because I hit it in the hosel, okay? I don't do that. I don't shank. I promise. Neither do you. Here we go again. Okay, now, ow! Watch out for those trees. All right, now, when this finishes rolling, this is what you get. Path 6 degrees in to out, which is what I almost got on the last one. But this time I didn't shank it. I hit it in the face, and it started 8.8 to the left. Now think about that for a second. Path 6 degrees into out started 8.8 to the left. You know what you would call that? Over the top. But that's not over the top. And what happens is that you start to make path assumptions based on club face lack of awareness. And what you have to realize is that shot, when you pull that I guess you can't do that just yet. So what happens is that club face is so shut that it starts nearly 9 degrees to the left, even though I was 6 degrees into out. And so then you start working on trying to solve the in to out, but your club face is still in a bad position and it still does the same. And the worst part is you do it the other way around. Now I'm going to do it with the club face in the open position. Set that straight. There you go. Gibbsy, pull that full. There you go. And you can see that start line is way over to the left-hand side. That ball apexed at 24 feet. Okay. And that's why you go, well, it started low and it started left. I must have been over the top. No, I was 6 degrees from the inside, but my club face was dead shut. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this club face. I'm going to open this wide up. I'm going to swing the club. Let's go down the line there, Gibbsy, if you would. I'm going to swing this club way out here like that. So it's going to be way over to the left-hand side here. So I swing that way over to the left-hand side. Look at that ball spin out to the right. Now, what you clearly can see from that is that ball started 2 degrees to the right, had 2,400 RPMs to the right. Now, come back over here and watch what happens with this. The path of that club is 3.6 degrees to the pull side, or what we'll call the left-hand side. But that ball started 2 degrees to the right. So the path was out to in 4 degrees, but the ball started 2 degrees to the other side, not 2 degrees to the left, but 2 degrees to the right. Why? Because the face is wide open. And that's how you start to understand that the most important thing is controlling the club face. What controls your club face? Well, there's a lot of things that control the club face, but more importantly, what will help you understand the control of the club face is understanding how to get the impact point the way that you want. So I bring the basketball back in here. So I set that up like this. Now, what you want to do, go down the line here if you would, Gibbsy. What I want to do is I want to impact the ball in this orange panel right here. But I want the face of the golf club to be square or closed to that panel. Okay, so go the overhead shot there. There you go. So I want that club face to be square or closed to that panel. So now what I'm doing is I'm looking down at that golf ball. Now you can go back. I'm looking down at that golf ball, and I want to get that inside quadrant there. I like to call it 7 o'clock. 12 o'clock is here. 6 o'clock is there for the right-hander. It's 7 o'clock. I want that to be 7 o'clock, but I want that club face to feel like it's at noon. And if I get that club face at noon with a 7 o'clock impact point, I should be able to get a little bit of a draw here. And the way I'm going to ensure that is I'm going to just set that club face just a little bit closed with my grip. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try to get that to 7 o'clock. So I get it to 7 o'clock there. This shot looks like it's going to be, yeah, I got it in the bucket. Now, let's see what we get here. So what I got here was I got a path that's 7.5 degrees from the inside. That gets me to that orange panel that I was talking to you about. But it didn't start 7.5 degrees to the push side. It only started 2.8 degrees to the push side. And the reason why is because I had my club face in the right position. And all of a sudden, I got spin. I got backspin of 5,100, and I got a side spin of 816 RPMs to the left. So what does that shot look like with a trace on it? Well, it looks like this. Gibbsy, can you show that? So it starts out to the right-hand side, and it spins over to the left-hand side. Now, when you realize how important the club face is, now all of a sudden, you understand impact basics. This is one of the most important things that in all of golf, understanding the club face and understanding how the club face affects the spin of the ball and ultimately the outcome of the shot. All right. So when you start to think about these two basics, your tailbone at address, so that's one. And then 1A is your tailbone in motion. So we're just going to say tailbone, address, in motion. Those basics. And you marry that up with the club face and how the club face has to oppose the path. If I have a push path, I have a pull face. And if I have a pull path, I have a push face. Now all of a sudden you can play golf. And one thing that I would try to emphasize, and we're going to get to your questions here in a second. One thing I would try to emphasize is this. You got to have a single shot shape. You got to create a single shot shape. And you might be saying, well, you know what? I don't have that. Yes, you do. Yeah, you can. What you got to do is you got to think about the right things. Now, when you're working on body motion, I would not worry about what's going on with your shot shape at that point. You worry about your tailbone. You get set up here with your tailbone, rotate that tailbone, hit the ball. Rotate the tailbone, hit the ball. Keep doing all that. Get to a point where you've developed some confidence and some consistency in your motion. And then start looking at what's going on with the curve of the ball. I want to show you this basic when it comes to curve of the ball, and then I'm going to get to your questions. So here's the basic. When the ball curves to the right, I don't care whether you're right-handed or left-handed, when the ball curves to the right, the face is to the right. When the ball curves to the left, the face is to the left. That's of the path. That's of the path. So when I get up here and I want to hit a little cut, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I keep that club face in a little bit of an open position. That ball, you can see that ball spinning back to the right-hand side. If we look at the spin of the shot, Gibbsy, let's go to 4 in the corner here. I look at the spin of the shot. That spin is 343 RPMs to the right. That means I achieved my goal. My goal was to have an open club face relative to path. Greg, will you pull that back up again so we can go and look at all that? And so now when I come over here, what I get is I get an out to in. That's what I want. I want a 1.5 out to in. I get an angle of attack that's going to squeeze that ball out. It starts 2 degrees to the left, and then it spins with 343 RPMs over to the right-hand side. And so what I need you to appreciate is know where the face is, and you'll know where your ball is. If you're not thinking about what's going on with the club face, ultimately, that basic of understand the club face, you will lose any feel of what's going on with the shot. So know what's going on with your tailbone, know what's going on with your club face, and you'll go through way less golf balls and you'll shoot way lower scores. Okay? That is the Breed's Basics. Now, let's get to some questions. Mr. Ducharme, pull them up. Let's go.
Okay. This one from RDF. This is off topic, but I'm a senior. And do you have a ball that you recommend with slow swing speed? I don't know exactly how slow it is, but I would guess I hit about 150 yards with a driver. What's the best ball to play?
Okay. So this is always a very difficult question for me. And I will tell you a story about this. Because when you have slow club head speed, you have low apexes. And when you have low apexes, you have very sort of shallow descent angles. And when you have shallow descent angles, now all of a sudden you have small greens. So then the question becomes, am I going to shoot lower scores if I get a golf ball that gives me 10 or 12 more yards? The answer is no. Where you're going to gain or where you're going to increase your ability, you're going to gain better shot shape is by getting a little bit more spin. And the more spin that you get, you'll get a little bit higher apex, which will give you a little steeper descent angle. But more than that, you're going to have some stopping power. And so the way a golf ball stops is through the trajectory of the shot, the angle that the club is coming into the green at. That will help stop the ball. And the amount of backspin that you have. Well, right now, you're a senior, you've got 150 in your distance with the driver. You're not going to get a lot of apex. You just aren't. And so by going and chasing a golf ball that's going to have less spin to get more distance, yeah, that's going to really help you a lot. But it's now going to take your greens and it's going to shrink them even more. And all of a sudden, every chip shot that you have is going to be downhill. Every green's going to be the fastest it can possibly be. And skill sets that you're going to now need to have with a club that has, with a ball that has less spin, you're going to have to be that much more precise, particularly if you're in the rough, which you're probably going to be because your ball is going to go through the green. And the only way it's going to stop is by getting into the rough. And when you're in the rough, now you lose spin. So what's the best golf ball for you? If I were in your shoes, and again, I'm assuming money is not a problem, I would experiment with the AVX golf ball. Now, that AVX golf ball has a lower compression, so you'll get a little bit more distance, but you'll still have spin. And so you might gain a little bit of spin. You might gain a little bit of apex. And what I have seen is with players that I have recommended the AVX golf ball to, they've been able to all of a sudden expand their greens and shoot lower scores. You get a little bit more distance, but you don't lose the spin. So to me, AVX would be the ball that I would recommend that you go to, provided again that you can afford it. So please understand that. But AVX would be the ball. Perfect world, AVX would be the ball that I would recommend you go to. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay. This one from Daniel. I have a strong left-hand grip, and notice I have a strong right-hand grip, which I believe should be weak. Is this why my ball tends to go to the right?
Okay. So the assumption then is that we have a strong left-hand grip and we have a strong right-hand grip.
Yes, but he believes it should be weak.
If you take your right-hand grip and you move it to the weak side, in other words, showing more knuckles. And now, the one challenge for me here, Greg, I don't know that I can answer this question just yet. You got to respond back to him, because is he left-handed? Because if he's left-handed, then I would weaken both, because the right will be a pull. So if you're strong and you're hitting the ball to the right, yeah, then all of a sudden I would weaken both. That's what I would do. However, if you're right,
he's right-handed.
Okay, so he's a right-handed golfer. So now, no, it's going to be going to the right. I don't want you to weaken that grip. What I would tell you to do is strengthen that grip. What I would tell you, though, is this, and this is an important one. So, Gibbsy, yeah. So here's the deal. The first place I'm going to look is ball position. Because when you take your strong grip, so I'm strong, and then I put my ball position way back here, now go down the line. What I'm doing when I do that is I've opened the club face because the ball is so back. Now just go to extreme. Now it's over here. Now when I hit this, and I don't want to hit this because it's going to go off the landing area, but when I hit this now, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a golf ball that's going to start out to the push side and it's going to stay out there to the push side, right? If you take that golf ball and you move it more forward with your still strong grip, both left and right, but you now put your ball a little bit more middle of the stance here. Now what you're going to get is you're going to get a golf ball that's going to go relatively straight. Because if you have a strong grip and you're not seeing curve, then chances are your grip is really good. Even though it might feel strong, it's really good. However, if it's going to the right, look for ball position. Ball position, it influences so many things, including the path, particularly in the takeaway. And that can influence also to address the face being a little bit open. Because right now, the club is now coming back through. It hasn't had a chance to close because it's so far back. So I would move that ball position forward and see what you get there. Okay? All right, let's get the next one.
Okay, this one from Michael. Last weekend, I had a 5.5-hour drive to a golf course. The first 9 holes, I played okay. The back 9, I played terrible. I'm thinking maybe the long drive messed me up, but also I may be swaying a little bit. Is being tired a reason why I may sway in my golf swing?
So, yes and no. What I would say is tiredness can do that. That's probably not what happened. Probably what happened was you sat on your can for 5.5 hours, which basically locks your hips down. I don't know whether you showed up there on time, but most people don't stretch. And as a result of the lack of the stretching, you don't have the mobility. And when you don't have the mobility, and then I'm sure you took a cart. If you drove 5.5 hours, you probably took a cart. So you drove 5.5 hours on your butt, and then you went out and played and sat on a cart on your butt. And the next thing you know, you're just locking your hips down, and that's too much time for your hips to be locked down. You get in the car for 5.5 hours and you're going to go play. You're going to make sure you do some stretching, do some pivots, do some, like one of the back out of this. So one of the things I like to do when I'm getting ready to play is I like to do this, where I just take my leg and I just swing it like this. Both of them use a club up and down, just like that. And then you also want to go side to side. So I do this, and it stretches the hips very nicely, both of them. Again, swing them back like this. Just do those for a little bit. Then maybe lean up against a cart and take your tailbone and push your tailbone out. See if you can get your back nice and flat and get back there. That's also going to help with your hamstrings, right? And all of a sudden, you've loosened up the turning mechanism. And then when that happens, now you can start to think about the rotation of the tailbone. And that tailbone starts to be able to rotate because you freed that up. Now you won't have any excuses, okay? And what I would also suggest is if you're taking a cart, so you've driven 5.5 hours, which, by the way, hats off to you for that kind of commitment, right? That must have been a bucket list experience. And obviously, if you didn't play so well and you made that 5.5 hour ride, that might have been a little bit disappointing. What I would say is you get out there, you make sure you continue to stretch, continue to do this, continue to pivot your hips. A great drill is you just stand there like this with your arms across and just see if you can just pivot your hips like this. Because I can move my hips like this. My shoulders don't move at all. If you go down the line, you can see my hands aren't moving a whole lot. Many of you will end up going like this, pivoting your hips. You want to keep your shoulders still, and you want to do this. And just keep doing that. And you can do that out on the golf course. And anything you can do to create some mobility here, because mobility here will give you mobility here. The lack of ability to turn is going to come out of the lack of ability to move your hips, rotate your hips. So when you get to where you can rotate your hips, or better yet, move that tailbone towards the target. So you move that tailbone towards the target. Now all of a sudden everything's going to be a lot freer. Okay? All right, here we go.
Okay, this one from Peter. Good morning, watching from New Zealand.
Awesome.
And I hate bunkers. Can you help me with this? Both dry and wet sand. What are the basics in the bunker?
Okay, so some bunker basics. So first, and this is a difficult thing. You know what? By the way, just so you know, like there's always these times that this happens for me, right? Because what I love to do is help people play better golf. And I was sort of conditioned. I'm 61. I was conditioned that the only way I can help people play better golf is if they come and see me, or maybe we talk on the phone. But now we're able to do this way. And I've got somebody that's down in New Zealand who's watching this, which is awesome. I mean, it's such a, I don't take it lightly. It's a tremendous compliment. So thank you so much for joining me. Bunker basics. The bunker basic first is you got to know what kind of sand you're playing out of. And I'm not just talking about firm or not, but what's the majority of it? And then you got to buy the club that you're going to use in there based on the sand. Your swing matters, but based on the sand. Okay. So that's the first basic, the weapon that you use to go in there and try and get out of this bunker. And I use that word weapon intentionally because a bunker, that's wartime stuff. You're going into battle right here. You're in a bunker. Okay. So that's a really important thing. If you have fluffy sand, you want a little bit more bounce, a little bit wider blade flange. This is the K grind right there. Yeah, zoom in on that one, Gibbsy. And what you can see is that that's got a pretty wide sole, right? Look at that thing right there. Yeah, so that's pretty wide. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you get yourself a club that's got a little bit more bounce to it if you got a lot of sand. If you don't, get a little bit narrower bounce, a little narrower flange. So you might have this one here has 14 in the bounce. You might play it at 10 in the bounce. That's the first thing. Second thing is never play totally square. Unless it's plugged in the bunker, never play totally square. It's always some degree open depending upon how firm that sand is. I'm more open if it's fluffy. I'm less open if it's firm. Okay, so that's a basic for me. If I'm in really fluffy sand, that club face is going to be wide open. If I'm not so fluffy sand, it's going to be closed a little bit more, okay? Now, from there, there's really, it's just one sort of basic for me, and that is set the angle, release the angle. Now, the reason why I want you to set the angle is when you set the angle, you tend to open club faces. You want to hit this shot with an open club face. And then what you're trying to do when you release the angle is you're trying to let the club go right past the club head, go right past the hands. So that club is in and out of the sand. You don't want that club digging down in that sand. You don't want it staying in the sand for a long period of time. You want it in and out, flashing right off of that. So what I like to do is I like to point the butt end of the club to the ground and point the butt end of the club to the ground. So you go point, point. And when you point and point, that club is just going to slide right through that. And so the basics to me are get a club that works for the sand that you're in. Understand the sand that you're in on a given day. So it might normally be a certain way, but in this particular case, depending upon whether you've had rain or whether it's raked or whatever, you have more or less sand. So now we got to open up or not open as much. We're always going to play a little open, but we're either more open or less open, but always open. And then set angles and release angles, set angles and release angles. And you can I do it with my right hand. So I set it with my right hand, and then I throw that thing with my right hand, and I throw it into a cupped position with the palm of my right hand facing up. So I go, boom. And I'm trying to get that thing to ride right along the back end of that bunker, right? Of that wedge. I want it right along that thing right there. That's what I want it riding along. So set it with that right hand, slap it into that sand with the right hand, and you'll have no problems. Okay. All right.
Okay. This one is from RDF. If you see an impact on your club to the toe area, does that mean that the face is too closed?
No, actually, it means that the face was too open. So what I think is, of all the lessons that I've given, and I don't know how many that is, but it's been a lot. I mean, since 1986, I've been teaching. So, we're coming up almost on 40 years that I've been doing this. Here's what I can tell you. Club faces open in the backswing. They got to close in the downswing. And when they close in the downswing, the handles tend to stop. And when handles tend to stop, toes tend to drive into the ground. And so what I would suggest is that you take your grip and you make it a little bit stronger. So rotate it to the trail shoulder, make it a little bit stronger. And then when you make this backswing, I want you to feel the relationship of the arm to the chest. And then I want you to just carry that arm and chest relationship as long as you possibly can. And what that will do is that will get the heel of the club more into the ground. And by starting with the club in a stronger position in your hands, you'll square it up. So what you're going to do is you're going to make your backswing. The club face will be taken care of by how you hold the club. And now what we're going to do is we're going to just carry that through with the rotation of the chest. So that arm is going to feel like it's sort of pinned on the chest and moving that way, right? So set up, club face is going to be a little bit closed because of the grip. And now I'm just going to keep that relationship of the arm to the chest, carrying that club down. And when I do that, now all of a sudden it's going to come out of the center of the club face. This is a very good strike right at my target. Is it going to hit it? Just nudged up against it. So pretty good shot. Now let's go over here, by the way. Let's just check this out. I know Greg was not ready for that one, but let's go over here. And this is excellent. So I got that club coming from the inside 2.5 degrees. So as that arm stays close to my chest there, now when I carry that club drops underneath. So I've got it from the inside, but also too, the club face was already taken care of. That only started a degree to the right. So I was 2.5 into out, but that club face was slightly closed and it started 1 degree to the right. So that ball had a little bit of left twist to it. Pretty good shot. Pretty happy with it. Yep. That thing had 80 RPMs of side spin. So just a little bit of left turn. That was not a tremendous amount, just a little bit. Relatively straight shot for most of you. That's a straight shot. A very good shot. Strengthen the grip. Keep that lead arm close to the chest as you can as you're coming down, and you'll be in great shape. Okay?
Okay. This one is from Joel. Is there a good drill, or what is your favorite drill for the tailbone, the movement of the tailbone?
So there are some great drills that I like. One of them is this. So when I get set up, you can go down the line there, Gibbsy. When I get set up, what I like to do is I like to do mirror work. Mirror work to me is maybe the most valuable thing that you could do, particularly in what we'll call off season. I don't quite. It's Joel, right?
Joel, yes.
Yeah. I don't know where you're from, but most people have a little bit of an off season. Maybe it gets a little bit cold, maybe you get some rain, whatever it may be. I'm not quite sure where you are, but I love to do mirror work. And so I have the mirror back where this camera 1 is. And what I like to do is I just like to check and make sure that my rear is outside of my heels. So I'll take a club and I'll just put it over there and I'll look in the mirror and I go, hey, yeah, that's pretty good. That's about that 6 to 8 inches. So that's one of the things that I'm going to do. Now go face on here, Gibbsy. So what I like to do is I like to take a golf club. This happens to be a 6-iron. I like to put it up against my thigh. Now what I want to do is I want to rotate my tailbone. And if I rotate my tailbone, what will happen is that club will just fall. I'm going to let it fall in a second. It'll fall down behind me. If I move the tailbone, now I'm going to feel that thing stick into my pants there. Okay. So what I like to do is I like to put that there. I'll cross up and then I'll rotate. And you can see that that grip is going to fall down to the ground. That shaft is going to fall down to the ground. And now I go, okay, where's my tailbone? Okay. that is pointing over there. Definitely pointing over there. So now where is it pointing over there? And that's the part where I'm kind of going, okay, that kind of feels like it's not quite 12 o'clock, but it's certainly past 9 o'clock. 12 o'clock would be here. 9 o'clock would be back over here. 3 o'clock is going to be over there. So when I do that, it kind of feels like that's a 10:30 to 11 o'clock. So now I go out to the range whenever I get out there and I'm working on the tailbone and I feel, and you can do that drill, by the way, with the club shaft out on the range. But then I feel that thing going to 10:30 or 11. And now all I'm going to do is take that tailbone, rotate it in there, and then come through. And go, wow, you know what? That felt like that actually had a little bit of, like that swing had some length to it. And it took some time. Now, did the club come from the inside? Yeah, it came from the inside about 4 and change degrees, almost 5 degrees. So that worked out nicely as well. So the way you train yourself, do some mirror work, which I recommend for everybody. For posture, it's the most helpful thing you could do. Do some mirror work. And then also, too, what I want you to do is take that club shaft, work on that drill, feel that thing going like that, and then get out there and bang some balls and feel that tailbone moving and pointing to, for the right-handed golfer, pointing to like 10:30, 11 o'clock this way. If you're lefty, you're probably in the, I'm going to say 1:30 to 1 o'clock time frame. Okay. With 12 o'clock being the target.
Okay. This one of 2 questions here from Jason. And this one's really related. Would using a 4 or 8 pound medicine ball be a good way to get the feel of that rotation with the tailbone and the hips? If you're maybe inside it doing mirror work, would you recommend using a medicine ball?
I don't know that I would say I recommend it. I'm not against it. I'm not opposed to it, but most people, when they're using medicine balls and weights, they start using their arms and hands a lot more. And if you're going to, let's take the basketball. Let's pretend that this is, an 8-pound ball. If I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to throw it, most people are going to go like this, and they're going to let their arms chuck it and not do it with the turning of the backswing. Because for the most part, you're thinking about what you're doing going forward, right? So what I would say is if it were me, what I might do is I might rest that medicine ball up against this trail hip, and I would take this thing and I would go like this. So I would literally hold it here, not throw it with the arm, rotate it back like this, almost like you're doing a shot put, and then you're going to throw it this way with your hip. That's what I would recommend. But I don't know that I would necessarily default to the added weight. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be the direction that I would go in. Okay.
Then his second question is,
okay,
after stretching, is there a good basic sequence of drills that help you work into the full swing when you're warming up?
Yeah. So this is a fun one, right? So obviously some stretching. A couple of things that I like to do is I like to get another club. So much the same as baseball players used to swing, more than one bat in the on deck circle. I like to swing a couple of clubs this way. So I've added some weight that way. That's one of the things that I like to do. And then I like to split that and swing them both at the same time. That's going to help me with my tempo. It's also because I'm only using one hand with one club. I'm still weighted. I'm overweighted with this. So my body is moving that way. That's another thing that I like to do. You can also use towels and wrap towels around, or head covers are very good. But for the most part, if you get that second club and you kind of swing that, I don't like using wood club. I don't like using the head covered clubs in this. You might be able to go to a longer iron, say a 5-iron and a 6-iron. I like to keep it to 6-iron and 7-iron. That's kind of where I am. There's a little more mass in there. And the other thing that I would tell you to do is don't bend over too much. In other words, when you do this drill, go ahead down the line a little, Gibbsy. What I like to do is I like to do this a little taller, because when I get taller, I've got more freedom. If I swing short clubs, I'll tend to bend over like this, and now all of a sudden you start locking your body down. So swing the club, whatever it is, 6, 7, 3, 4, I don't care. Just no head covered clubs, and feel like you're a little tall when you're swinging this. Don't try to create bend. Try to stay up here tall and swing the club that way. When you start to do that, you'll start getting some length in that swing, and you'll start getting stretched out properly.
Okay, this one from Steve. Michael, you mentioned in the last couple of weeks that you in your game had been pulling shorter wedges and drawing or hooking them. Have you made any progress on that? And how do you think about that as it relates to today's discussion?
That is a phenomenal question, Steve. I appreciate you asking that. So I have solved that, and I've been able to convert some birdies here in the last little bit. Now, what did I do? Well, the first thing that I did was I got here in the studio and I started making some swings, watching some videos, and noticing a couple of things. And one of the things, go ahead and pull it full, Gibbsy, if you could. Let me get a wedge here. One of the things that I noticed was that I had my golf ball too far forward. And, I think one of the things, and we'll talk about this in the future and probably tomorrow, is what are your tendencies? I tend to have the tendency of bending over too much. That's a tendency I have. And I have a tendency of moving the ball too far forward in my stance. Now, the too far forward thing happens because I like to hit cuts. So I don't want the ball to get too far back. But at the same time, when I have clubs that have loft, wedges, they're not going to curve a whole lot. So what I did was I started thinking about, okay, what do I tend to do? My tendency is move the ball forward. So what I did was I just got into a position with it's hard to see it. I don't know if you can pull down the line, Gibbsy. There's this mat over here. Just pull that camera over. See this mat right here? This mat has a grid on it. And what it does, yeah, good job. So what that grid does, it has little check marks on it. And what I noticed is that I got my ball way too far forward. So what I did was I got in there, I just set up what was comfortable, and I looked at it, and my ball with a wedge was in my 6-iron position, or where my 6-iron should be. My 6-iron had moved forward as well. So I moved everything back in my stance. And so now when I move it back in my stance, a couple other things took place here. One was actually made a better turn. And then the second thing was it helped to open up the club face. And all of a sudden, what I started getting was very, very straight shots with almost no curve whatsoever. You can see that one there. Yeah, there it is. That's dead straight. All I did was move that ball back a little bit. But again, in order for me to, and I appreciate that question very much, in order for me to solve the problem, I have to know what my tendencies are. My tendency is to bend over too much. So I'm constantly trying to monitor, being taller. My tendency is to get the ball a little bit more forward. My tendency is to get a little sway. My tendency is to cross the line. So these are all things that I know that I do. And so I'm as aware of my tendencies as I am of anything. And then I just take my tendencies and I try to plug in, all right, this is going on. What could this be? I'm hitting shots with my wedges that are pulling. Why would they pull? Well, they're not going to curve that way with the face. So I got to look at what's going on with my ball position. And that's what I've done. That's okay. I forgive you, Gibbsy. It's fine. Look, I would go to the shoes too. They're beautiful. I understand. That's it. I was a little plug for FootJoy. No, I'm telling you, it's hard. I get it. All right, let's go.
Okay, this one from Michael. I'm having issues with my front nine versus my back nine. My back nine is so much better. What can I do to help my front nine scoring?
Okay. There's a couple little different things that go on in this. One of them is it could be you just put a lot of pressure on yourself when you first start out, right? And then it may be that, you played so poorly on the front that it doesn't really matter on the back. And so now you're playing without the pressure. That may be one of the things that's taking place. And at that point, what I would do is I would try to have a mantra of, hey, just one shot at a time. Just one shot at a time. I'm going to aim at this. Let's find out if I can hit it there and focus on this thing and don't worry where it goes. And then let's deal with the next situation when we get to the next situation. We had the word of the day today is now, right? So right now, be here right now and focus on this right now. Don't look to the future. Don't look to the past. Just deal with the now, right now. And as you start to do that, I think you're going to find that you'll be much more aware. And when I started doing this, like this is years and years and years ago, all I did was focus on this one shot. I used to get headaches. It was such a focus for me. And I was so fatigued at the end of the day because I was literally so engrossed in that one moment, and I'd have however many one moments that I had. So that'd be one of the things that I would recommend. The other thing that I would look at is your preparation for your round of golf. And preparation, to me, we talked a lot about it on A New Breed of Golf on SiriusXM. Preparation to me is a really important thing. How prepared are you for the round? Are you getting there and you only giving yourself 20 minutes to warm up? Maybe it takes you more than that to warm up. Maybe it takes you 40 minutes to warm up. And so you just get warmed up by the time you get to the backside. So it might be that. I don't know what you need to do to be able to play your best. What I can tell you is I know what I need to do to play my best. And I know how much time I need for a round of golf. And I know the areas that I need to work on in order for me to play my best round. And what I would recommend is that you do the same. Find out, you know what, when I warm up and I only have 20 minutes, I feel rushed on the first tee and I feel hurried. I don't feel prepared. I haven't had a chance to work on my chipping and my putting. And as a result, I never do very well. When I get on the backside, I'm kind of relaxed now. The score's gone and whatever. The final thing that I would suggest is when you talk about that moment of now, don't add your scores up. Write them down, but don't add them up. Write them down. Don't add them up. A lot of times what happens to people is they start writing their scores down and they let the score affect how they play, whether it's a good score or a bad score. I made an 8, I stink. I made a 3, I got to protect, right? And just write the score down and then deal with this next hole. Get away from adding it up. Shouldn't know where you are. Shouldn't know where you are to par, where you are in your, I normally don't break 50. I just shot 41. You have that thought, I guarantee you the back nine is going to go poorly. And to that end, like you just shot 51 and you normally shoot 37, the back nine doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter because that's not where you play. Deal with what you have to do to have success on that one hole. Don't worry about it when it's gone. Don't worry about how you are relative to whatever, and don't add your stuff up. Okay.
This one from Joey. When does the right arm extend from the top of the swing? I have been told it should start to extend from the top. Is that true? Or do you hold the angle of the elbow until impact?
Okay. So this is only one of my favorite topics. And let me pull up the guy who I think has everybody does this, but this one individual is better at it than some others. So let me pull this up here. Okay. So here's Will Zalatoris. Now, this is a couple of years ago, 2021. So he takes the club back. So that's the bend in his elbow, probably 90 degrees. That's the bend in his elbow. Now, this guy, by the way, mashes a golf ball. He's 6'2", 150 pounds. So it's not like the guys like John Rahm. And he mashes the ball. And the reason why is because when this guy starts to go down, what I want you to look at is what happens with that elbow. So that's definitely not getting straight. And in fact, I would argue that that's getting tighter. That elbow is now getting even tighter. So now as he starts to go down, now it's going to start straightening out, straightening out, straightening out. So there's impact. That is not straight. And I would argue like it is marginally straighter than he was at the top of his swing. When does it straighten out? Right about there. That's about when it straightens out. So whoever's taught you or told you that you got to take your arm and straighten it out in the downswing, au contraire, mon frere. What I want you to do is I want you to keep that elbow bent, and I want you to maintain that bend all the way through, and then I want you to straighten it out parallel to the ground on the target side of the golf ball. Now watch, when I go over here and I do that, this ball, if I hit it solidly, it will get close to 120 miles an hour, maybe even more if I hit it solidly, of ball speed. I hit it thin. I hit it thin, but I hit it straight. I almost hit my target. 116 on a thin shot, and that's right out of the barrel. So I would tell you, work on. I can't. I agree with you. Hit another. I love that. Okay, so hit another. There we go. There we go. Now, Gibbsy, you don't have to follow that ball. What you can do is go right on up to the ball speed number. Let's go up here with 4. And look at that right there. 119. I told you I'd be 120. That's 119 and a half. So call it 120. And that's just my second swing. I wasn't even working on that. I was taking a little bit of time there. So what I can tell you is work on that straightening of that thing going this way. When you straighten that thing that way, now you got a chance. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay. This is from Daniel. You answered his question earlier. He said that both of his hands he had a strong right and a strong left.
Yeah, I remember.
He says, I misspoke. I have a strong left hand and a weak right hand. What does that do?
Okay. So now we're back to that. So if you have a weak right hand, get that. So what I want those palms to match in your grip. I don't want them to butterfly. That butterfly is both hands are down to the ground. I want them to match. And so if your left hand is strong, your right hand should be strong as well. So when I put this on, my hand is here, my right hand is here. The palms are facing one another. Now, when they face one another, you're not going to hit it to the right. I promise you're not going to hit it to the right. So, yeah, I would toy around with that ball position, but I would make sure that right hand was underneath. Okay. All right. We got time for one more question here.
Okay, great. This is from Rob. Please give me some insight on the hardest wedge shot, the 30-yard wedge shot off tight, wet Florida Bermuda grass. What wedge should I use and what method?
Okay. So first is I like to use clubs that's not my greatest loft. Okay. So I play a 58 and a 53. I have a 54, but I bent it to 53. I like to use 53. Okay. So I'm 53. And then I like to take the club face. I like to open the club face up a little bit. And then I like to take this thing and I like to stand it on its toe. So go down the line there, Gibbsy, if you would. I like to get in close to this. Okay. So the heel is kind of in the ground here. And what I want to do when I'm hitting this is I want to feel like I'm keeping that club face wide open here. So here, and then I'm just nipping underneath it. That shot there, 26. Now, what you want to feel when you hit this shot, that club face is going to stay open. Those hands are going to go around to the left side for the right-handed golfer. They're going to go to the pull side. So you're going to take this, you're going to let your hands pull over, but don't let the club face close. Once the club face closes, that's when the leading edge is going to dig down. You got to keep the club face open. So you're pulling around to the left, but you're keeping the club face open. I like to think about it with my right hand. So my right hand is going to go around to my left side or around my body, but the palm is going to be up into the air, just like that, like I'm hitting a cut shot. And then I just come through, I hold that thing there. It glides along the ground, and you're not going to have any problem with that. Give that a try. Go to that less lofted sand wedge, set that thing a little open, stand a little closer, toes into the ground, then go around to the pull side with the trail hand, the palm facing up into the air. Okay. And I know you're going to have some success. All right. First of all, thank you all so much for joining us each and every Thursday. Please tell your friends what we've got going on here. I know that look, we're at 42,000, roughly 42,000 followers here. We're trying to get this up to 100,000. We need you to help. And the more you help us, the more we get to do this. Morgan Franklin has been so generous in being a part of our show, and we love it. We appreciate it so very much. We're trying to get other partners to be a part of this so we can continue to do this for you, bring this live instruction to you each and every day. Each and every week on Thursday. So please tell your friends, like us, subscribe, do what you do so that we can keep doing what we're doing. Speaking of what we're doing, it is we, it's not a me, it's a we. And I want to thank my two friends, Steve Gibbs and Greg Ducharme, for doing what they do again. Remind you too, nice job. Okay, there you go. Remind you all, we have the Blessed Poker Chip ball markers for you. If you want to be part of the community and you want to be that way, send an email to me at anewbreedofgolf@michaelbreed.com. They're $6. And it's a great way to be a part of the community. There are other ways as well. We've got the hats, and we also have the head covers, the putter covers as well. So if you want to be a part of the community that way, make sure you reach out to us that way. Send those emails to me at anewbreedofgolf@michaelbreed.com. In the meantime, we will see you or talk to you tomorrow morning on Sirius XM on A New Breed of Golf. And we're going to talk about tendencies. Very important topic of conversation. Make sure you join us over there starting at 8 a.m. Eastern. In the meantime, I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.